Hey everybody, it's Seth.
It's Becky.
Here's the deal. We are taking the rest of the year off because we are in the lab retooling the podcast.
We have so many exciting ideas. We can't wait to show you what we're working on, and we're going to relaunch in January.
Until then, we're not going to leave you empty-handed. We're digging through the archives and we're pulling out old interviews that we think you'll still love. Here's one now.
Check. 1, 2, 3.
The D.
Brief.
This is the D brief.
Your guide to Detroit.
Your guide to Detroit's art.
Arts and entertainment scene.
This is the D.
Brief.
Hello and welcome to the Debrief. I'm your co-host. My name is Seth Ressler.
I'm Becky Scarcello.
And we've got a big episode today.
I'm so excited.
We have a guy who's here for multiple reasons because he's just got multiple.
He's like the crazy talent in all genres.
Oh,
yeah.
So many successful ventures. We have Josh Malerman, who is not only the author of the 2014 novel Bird Box, which has been huge on Netflix.
Yes.
This is the movie starring Sandra Bullock, John Malkovich, Trevante Rhodes. It also won a Michigan Notable Book Award in 2015. It was nominated for a Bram Stoker Award for Best First Novel. And now, because the movie has just been blowing up, it is on the New York Times bestseller list. And he brought along with him, because they have a band that's blown up as well. It's called the High Strung. So we have Chad Stalker, the bass player for the band, here as well. And of course, Josh is the singer-songwriter for the band. Guys, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, nice to see you all.
Hi, you two.
Thanks for being here.
Heck of an introduction.
Well, actually, I'm blindfolded. Nice to hear you all.
You know what? I thought about coming in today with a blindfold. I'm like, no, just, stand back. Don't get too excited and cheesy.
Yeah.
I had to contain myself.
So where do we start? Do we start? You pick, Becky. Are we starting with the book? We starting with the band? Because there's a lot to talk about here.
I think they have a lot in common because you're a writer and you write in all kinds of ways and songs, books, and so I think we start from that commonality. How did you get started? How long have you been writing?
Well, it's hard to say. I think that once you become, let's say a published author or even when you're putting albums out, you can't help but start to look back to where did this all start? You start looking for signs of, signs that may have indicated an author to be, And I remember, even as far as back as fifth grade, trying my hand at what I thought was a novel, right? Obviously, not finishing that one, which still kind of bugs me because how amazing would that be for me to tell you that I did. And then years later in high school, I play in this basketball tournament. I come home from it, and I was so excited that I wrote a 40-page account of this trip that I went on. At the time, that was just woohoo, let's roll and let's write this thing out and print it for our friends. But in hindsight, man, a 3-page story, a 3-page report or something in high school would have been a lot to do to me. But writing 40 pages for no reason at all wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
And so I start to see these signs oh, you've been kind of doing this forever. My bandmates had been playing music forever already. And at some point, Chad and other friends, Adam and John, they were all in a band together. And at some point they asked Derek to play drums with them. And it was sort of by proximity. I was friends with everyone, and I wrote something. I was writing like poems and whatever. And it was sort of like I was invited into the band also, not to write songs, but to like, oh, you're a creative dude, right? Mm-hmm. And Chad taught me chords on the organ, and I'm sitting there kind of in the background playing G and C, falling in love with G and C, G and C, G and C. And that led to, trying to write my own songs. Kind of, Mark comes into the picture. He grabs like a poem of mine off the stack of poems. He starts singing that over G and C. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh wow, we can write songs too. So it seems like it all kind of like started in a messy, glorious way all at the same time.
Just an explosion of creativity.
So do you ever start with an idea that you think is going to be an idea for a book, and then it turns out to be an idea for a song, or vice versa?
Yeah, for a while, the big ideas would be a novel, and the smaller ideas would be a song. But then, at some point, I started writing short stories. And I think that the song output or something suffered for that for a while, because every smaller idea I had, I already wrote it or something. This went on for a few years actually, where that's the well I used to go to for our song ideas. What really happened was when our first album, Mark, the other singer-songwriter in the band, he was involved in the first album and songs before then, and then Mark left for about like 12 years or something.
Oh, wow.
And Derek, Mark, and I were playing forever. Derek, Chad, and I were playing forever, and then we got Steven in the band. The point is, a couple years ago, Mark called me up, and he was like, hey, do you mind if I'd like to play with you guys again. And there was no, like, real animosity or anything like that. So it was like, we had to, like, talk about it, like, what do we do? Mark wants to play again, you know. But then we're like, yeah, this sounds unbelievable. It was so well timed for me because at that point is exactly where I felt like the song output kind of had suffered from writing short stories, and I was becoming pretty swamped with the book stuff. And this is before this Bird Box movie stuff even.
Yeah.
So to have another songwriter return to the band, like exactly when I needed him to.
Right.
And it was this great feeling. Not that it was some lazy, like, you know, fear of like the workload or something, but you got a dude who writes brilliant songs. You know, you and him write songs together. It was almost like Mark stepped in at exactly the right time, and he almost acted as sort of a fountain of youth for me or something.
Right. Reinvigorated things. Yeah. So how did it? You'd been playing together a long time. How did this whole song getting on Shameless happen? What was that whole process? So you have the theme song for the Showtime show Shameless.
Yeah, well, we wrote that song for our second record called Moxie Bravo, and that came out in 2005.
Okay.
And when we scored our first record deal, no, actually, it had nothing to do with the record company. It was we were just touring constantly, and our booking agent. We had a booking agent, and he knew a guy that lived in Nashville who worked for a place called Bug Music, which is a like publishing company. Mm-hmm. And so they're like administrators of publishing licenses, you know. So people come to them and say, we need something that sounds like this. You know, we have a TV show, and they say, well, we have this band and this band that do that.
Oh.
So we got signed to them, not to the Nashville one, the LA office, because they kind of handled more secular rock. I don't know.
Okay.
You know, Nashville's got like that heavy Christian and country thing.
Sure.
But we remained friends with that guy for a while too. And then, and so she had our catalog, and she continues to have our catalog to this day. She works for a different company now. And they came to her, I believe, and said we were looking for, you know, something upbeat. I don't know, you know, I don't know what they were.
Whatever their
pitching.
parameters were, and
we had been signed with Mara for, man, how long? I don't know, years.
Wow.
Before that theme song happened.
Yeah.
And I think it was after like a practice one day. I think Derek called me, like Derek left, the drummer left, and he called me from like a grocery store or something, and he was like, "Hey, I got good news. You know, a new show on Showtime wants to use one of our songs for a theme song." And I'm like, "What?
What are you talking about?"
And we had like no idea which one, you know, like because they all seemed like the same to me or something, you know. And then, but now when I look at like YouTube hits, there's like a gazillion for The Luck You Got and like 10 for the next one on the album, you know. But at the time, I mean, it could have been any one of them, and I would have been like, "Oh, great, sure, yeah."
It's one of those, like, I love that show. I've watched every episode, but it's one of those, like, I sit there and listen to the intro. Like, I watch it. You know, a lot of shows you just fast forward. Like, I don't want to see the intro and waste my time.
Skip intro.
But I always keep that one on because it's just catchy and it fits so much with the show theme.
Well, that's an odd thing because we also had a song in a trailer for a Will Ferrell movie called Everything Must Go, right?
Yeah.
And in that movie, it's like he's dropped out of society and he's drinking beer and then I'm like, why are our songs like used for all these like wastoid scenarios? Yeah, it's like, does somebody can they see us?
Right? Yeah, it could go either way, but I'm sure you're happy with it.
Yes, couldn't be happier. More drunk stories, please. We would love to score them.
Yes.
Now, you guys have a new album. It's called Quiet Riots. It's out on streaming services now. It's also coming out on vinyl. Does it even come out on CD? Do people do that anymore?
No, isn't that weird? No.
Yeah. They sell the CDs out of the back of their car, though. Like if you need them.
Do you? I mean, what do you sell at shows? Like, do you
vinyl.
sell really? You sell vinyl
of all of our albums. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I mean, I know people are really into vinyl, but that's a pain to carry from a concert.
Well,
you know,
that's
like where
true,
you put
but
it.
I don't know. Like my kids are 16, 18. All they buy is vinyl.
All they buy
Really?
is
I mean,
vinyl.
they do streaming,
Wow.
but I mean, we're a music fan. Like we're into it, but yeah, they both wanted turntables.
Wow.
And that's what they buy.
That's
Yeah.
I mean,
freaking awesome.
Yeah.
You know, Urban Outfitters started selling turntables
That's
like
true.
7-8 years ago,
Yeah.
and then they have a whole bin full of vinyl,
Yes,
expensive
in the
vinyl.
Yeah. yeah.
And I think, you know, and now if you go to Urban Outfitters, you'll see they're trying to sell cassette tapes and stuff.
Yeah.
Really?
So I think in
Yeah.
10
Wow.
years they're gonna like
Want the
this
CDs?
thing called the CD player. We're gonna redo it because
That's
it's
probably
retro,
true.
and
That's
they're gonna
probably
start
true.
selling CDs. So I have stacks of CDs of our band.
You're buying stock?
located in. No, I just have them.
Yeah.
The distributor is going to throw them away, and I was like,
No,
in
no,
10
no.
years, these are going to be hip again, and we'll have a bunch, and we
Mark
can sell them.
my words.
So
Nice.
I have them up in my attic.
Are they going to come in the tall cardboard boxes or the the plastic
I
sleeves?
love
that are-
those. I used to
Yes.
save those cardboard boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to know why the cardboard boxes existed?
No.
So you wouldn't
Because-
steal them.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
they were because they were fitting into the old
Oh, the
bins
record
for the
bins.
vinyl.
Oh.
So when they were replacing vinyl with CDs,
Oh, that makes
they
sense.
still
So
had
they'd have
these
to
really deep wells.
Yeah, they'd have to fit
So they
their
just pop
different.
those in.
I just thought it was
That's
to
what they
prevent
were.
shoplifting.
So did I. I thought there was some like sneaky like thing in there.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you can still steal them.
I know you did it. I was like, I know. Yeah.
You guys are also going to be playing soon. You guys are playing a show in Ann
Yeah.
Arbor coming up on February 9th. Going to be at the Lo-Fi, is that right?
That's correct. We're playing with a good friend of ours named Matt Jones. And then somebody else who I feel terrible that I don't know who
But
else
they'll
is
be
playing.
great.
But I'm
It's-
sure
it's-
You'll
be
remember
great.
their name as soon as you
Yeah.
get an angry text from them after this show is
The
published.
guy whose bar it is, he like I don't know if he owned bars and he booked bands at bars in
Okay.
Ypsilanti for years, and
Sure,
so
sure.
we've played like every one that he's been into, we've played,
And they've all been like
perfect.
super fun.
and they're really fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that'll be a
Yeah.
good one. And then you're going to be March 15th at Otis Supply.
Yep.
They're in Ferndale. So good.
And the Hamtramck Music Fest as well, right?
Yeah,
Have you guys played that before?
Yeah,
What's that like?
Oh, it's
to go
fun.
play that for somebody who's never been,
it's fun.
like me.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, yeah. You're,
But what
should
happens
go.
at the Hamtramck Music Fest?
so it's it used to be called the Metro Times Blowout.
Blowout.
You know, and the blowout would happen only in Hamtramck, and they would turn every little neighborhood bar into a venue for those 3 days. You know, and then the Metro Times Blowout got sort of taken over by Ferndale, and so then a group of musicians decided they wanted to make it just Hamtramck again. So they've called it the Hamtramck Music Fest. It's been around for maybe almost a decade now.
I
don't know.
probably.
I think so. Yeah.
And then it's just like 25 different venues.
You
and
get a wristband.
1,000
Yeah.
bands.
Super
play.
reasonable price.
Hamtramck's like there's something magical about bar hopping there when there
Yes.
aren't bands. You know,
Oh,
so I mean,
right.
so it really is a fun one. It like feels good.
Home of ton of dive bars and just
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like all like rock, like Detroit rock bands.
Yeah, very-
it's
yeah.
really fun.
There's something fun about it being in the wintertime too.
Oh,
I don't
for
know
sure.
why, but I just have all these memories of the Blowout and now Hamtramck Music Festival of always just like bundling up
Yes.
and bearing through and getting to the next
Well,
bar,
because
and then
March
you're
you're
hot.
like just so hungry to get out and be
Yeah.
outside, but it's still cold and yucky. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good time. Yeah.
It sounds very Michigan.
It's
There's
very
something
Michigan.
about it.
It
Yeah.
is.
It's
It's
actually
kinda-
really very Detroit. Yeah. So let's transition over to the books.
Yeah, so let's talk about this because obviously, it's all come to a head recently with the Netflix movie, but this is something that has, it's an overnight success a long time in the making.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where Bird Box started.
So I wrote my first book in like 2004, and I had spent something like 10 years before that failing at writing one. And all I really mean by failing is that I didn't finish one. There was like 4. I think I even made it 300 pages into one, but I didn't finish it. I still have that in my office, and I feel like I should just go home and write the end on it, and I have another one. But so I finished my first one in like 04, and Bird Box I think was the fourth book, and at the time, and it's still sort of like this. It was just sort of like the next story to write. That doesn't mean that it was like passionless or something, but I do have something of like an assembly line nature to me or something that I'm discovering over time, because it wasn't just a burst, it's still happening or something. And Bird Box was just the next one in line. I had an image of a mother blindfolded and 2 kids blindfolded, navigating down a river, fleeing something that they weren't allowed to look at. And to me, that was, I write horror stories, so to me, that was
the ultimate.
It was
horrific.
just a striking image. I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. I didn't know I didn't even know about their housemates yet. These kind of things.
Did you have do you remember where you were when you had that image? I mean, were you sleeping and woke up, or
Very close, actually. I was in the back of a car, a little hungover. I was laying down in the back, driving home from Chicago, while 2 friends of mine, Court Johns and Bill Harmer, were up in the front. I think Court was driving and Bill was in the passenger seat, and I was just laying down in the back seat. And I had this, I had just this image of this woman going down a river blindfolded. And so I started it October, I think, 5th, 2006.
You remember the exact day?
Yeah, that's pretty
I do.
precise.
Yeah.
And I was like, so, you just start, like, oh, I'm writing this thing. And then it started like gain steam on me, which a number of the rough drafts have done, but this one really did. And you guys, I don't know how well you know, like, word count. I don't know, whatever.
Oh, sure.
But it got up to like 4,300 words a day, where I would go to bed at night, wake up, and I would go to bed and be like, oh, maybe tomorrow, like someone should knock at the door of their house. And then I would fall asleep. And then I wake up and 4,000 words. Someone knocked on the door, and write that whole scene and more. By October 31st, so 26 days later, I was done. And it was about twice as long as the book is now.
Oh.
It was almost like an experimental wonderland. There were no indentations, no chapter breaks. The entire thing was written in italics. There were no quotation marks. It was like a solid block of writing of just this nightmarish scenario that this woman goes through. Eventually, then when Bird Box was done, a few months or a month later, I wrote the next book. And then I wrote the next one. And to me, they all, and I still feel this way, they all, they're all as good or as bad as each other.
Ah.
But at some point, I met a manager and a lawyer and an agent. Well, before the agent, I met a manager and a lawyer who we had to figure out because I think by the time I met them, I had written like 10 novels or something. And we had to figure out which one do we want to shop, right?
Right.
And a book of mine called Unburied Carol, which has now been published, I had just written that one, and we were all excited about it, so we spent about a year and a half rewriting Unburied Carol, meaning Ryan, my manager, he'd give me some notes, and then I would read through the whole thing, and I'd apply his notes, and then make some more of my own, and whatever. This went on for like a year and a half, and then right when we were about to shop it to an agent, I said to Ryan, I was like, man, I think this other one, Bird Box, is like more of a debut. It's more of like a how do you do, because Unburied Carol is a bit of a Western, and I didn't want to get like stuck in that world or something.
Right.
It's up to me to be stuck in there or not, right? Mm-hmm. But so Ryan's like, dude, we just spent like a year and a half working on this book, and now you want to work on a different one, and I'm like, I think so.
He's like, those damn creative.
And then, I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
And then
he's an artist.
And then he was like, the first thing you have to do is indent this thing. Second thing you have to do, you're gonna have to give me
readable.
You're gonna have to take the italics off.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna have, and I'm like, what are you talking about? The reason I want to do this is it's this experimental, like mammoth masterpiece, right? He's like, dude, there's no way I'm going to be able to sell this like it is right now. It looks like the rantings of a lunatic. So I went in and did all the things he said. I actually felt like I was not selling out, but I remember feeling like something artistic was being revoked. But it's almost embarrassing to say that now, because the book is so much better now than it was then. Through all the rewrites and all the care that went into it, blah, blah, blah. When that was all done, we shopped it to an agent who had never had a horror novel before in her roster. And even on her website, it says, no horror, please. But the lawyer thought she would like this one. Sent it to her. She liked it, and she picked it up and shopped it to HarperCollins. So this is now 2012.
Okay.
So to me, at this point, I've had Bird Box on me for like 6 years.
Right.
In some form or another.
26 days of which we're writing the first draft.
Exactly.
26 days.
And then 5 years and whatever days. Were,
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then 2013, it gets optioned by Universal Studios at the time, and the book comes out in 2014. Netflix buys the rights from Universal, somewhat shortly thereafter.
Before you gloss over that, because you make it sound like,
yeah.
this happened all the time.
And then I walked into Target.
How
and bought
common
something. Yeah.
is that for especially a first published novel?
It wasn't even
published by an author to get optioned by a movie studio.
Yeah, is that a thing?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard. That's hard for me to know. I don't think it's common, and I'm like very aware of how like lucky this moment in time was. There's really like a whole slew of things that seem very fortuitous, very lucky during that stretch. I had a friend. I was, the High Strung. We're playing all the time, and I'm drinking all the time with other friends too, and all this. And then a friend from high school wrote me, "Hey, I see you posting online that you write novels. Can I send one to a lawyer in LA?" I'm like, okay. I gave him this one called Goblin. He sends it to that's how I met the lawyer. This friend it almost felt like a Dickens novel. Like, like this mysterious benefactor reached out to Pip and said, like, "I know a lawyer that can help you."
Right.
And I'm like, okay, Dave, And then from there, like you're asking, how often does this happen? I don't know. All I know is that it can even to me sometimes seem like so fortunate or something, but I truly was like prepared for that moment. Does that make sense?
Yes,
and
yes.
You hear about opportunity is luck and preparation or whatever the hell that thing is.
Yeah.
But like I experienced that.
True.
It's really what happened or something, where I was like armed with all these novels and I think by the time Bird Box came out, I had written like 14 of them or something.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and now the number's like 28.
Oh, wow.
So, and some of those other rough drafts have been even less than 26 days.
Wow.
So, I don't know. I don't know how common it is or not, but I am definitely grateful and aware of how fortunate it is.
Sure.
So it gets optioned, and Netflix picks it up.
And you have no say in any of that, right? Like
Talk about unknown, right?
Yeah.
It's your first novel, and it's not even out yet.
Yeah.
So, zero leverage, zero say,
Right.
just purely like, oh, I hope it's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you want to buy it, here you go.
Yeah, okay, dude.
When did you find out who was going to be in it? When did you find
Yeah, all that stuff.
I can't even remember. Do you remember me telling you? I can't remember when I found out that Sandra Bullock was going to be in it. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but I remember being like, oh my God, she's like perfect,
Yeah, she is.
It was. I remember it being when it was Universal. I thought there was talk of it being Halle Berry. Remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, I could see that also.
Yeah, and then I remember you telling me about John Malkovich being a part
I remember
of it,
finding
too.
that out.
Oh
I was
my
in.
God.
That was really exciting.
I was in Grand
Yeah.
Rapids drinking when I found that out. I remember I was in a bar and I stepped outside and my manager's like, "You're not gonna believe this, but John Malkovich is in Bird Box also." And I was like,
He's
what?
perfect. I mean,
What's
he plays
going
such
on?
that great, angry, like jerk face.
Yeah, he's such a jerk face. Yeah.
Yeah, he is great. Yeah.
And so were you on set? When did you see the final version of the movie?
So, while I had no say,
Yeah.
I was still like welcome throughout the whole thing.
Oh, nice.
Allison is my fiance. Allison and I went on set. That was wild. We saw Trevante Rhodes acting like in the woods. We saw a scene there. And then we were inside for hours as watching Sandra Bullock and Sarah Paulson when the cars like flipping over and that whole scene.
Yeah.
We were watching that whole scene. And so this was like a sound stage. And they were all like lit up, the two of them, and cameramen, everything. And everyone else was like in the shadows outside of it. And at the end of this day's shoot, one of the producers came up to me and he was like, "Hey, Josh, I want to introduce you to someone." And I'm like, oh God, I'm like chewing my fingertips off. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm going to meet Sandra Bullock. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he walks me through the crew. And then everyone that was in that sort of lit up area sort of shuffles back into the shadows. And the producer just kind of, leaves me like facing like with Sandra Bullock, like under these like bright lights while everyone else is in like shadow. And I'm thinking like, is her whole life like this? Like I am meeting her on the stage. I am meeting her under the spotlight. Yeah, and it was this crazy
That's
moment
so
where
funny.
she was like immediately funny and ripping on like her own acting in the scene that I had watched and whatever
Like
like that.
self-deprecating
Yeah,
and
like
like-
immediately.
Oh.
And
yeah.
but she seemed like she had like and this is true the other times I met her too. She seemed like, how do you explain it? Like just the kind of person that has like their presence is bigger than they are in the room, Super smart, super funny, super present, just like a big personality.
Yeah.
Charisma.
Yeah, for
the
sure.
The it factor.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when there was a moment on the red carpet, because Allison and I also went out to the premieres. There was a moment on the red carpet in New York where my agent was really insistent on getting a photo of me with her because we didn't have one. And she pretty much kind of wormed me up onto the red carpet with them because I had already taken my own photos, whatever. And all of a sudden, I'm standing next to Sandra Bullock, and I'm like, "Hi," and she goes, "Hi."
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, that's mostly the extent of that.
Yeah. Now, so did you know going in how they might change the story in the movie?
No,
or
so
any of that?
we got drafts of the script along the way, but at some point, so I had read an earlier one and an earlier couple or whatever. At some point, I said to Ryan, I'm like, let's just not read the script anymore.
Okay.
Not because I thought anything. It was let's just see, I just want to see this movie. I don't want to go into it thinking this has changed or that's different.
Yeah.
I want to just see it as a movie.
It's its own thing.
When you are the author of the original work, but you're not one of the screenwriters, are you invited to give notes or not really?
So Ryan, the manager, he was one of the executive producers on it. So yeah, they asked us, but it was kind of understood, okay, well, we'll if your note lines up with our notes, we'll make that change.
Right.
So I'm glad that you guys are saying something, but most likely it's not going to happen. So
Right.
And that's totally fine. And honestly, and I was 100% fine with that. We saw it for the first time. We were supposed to see it for the first time in Los Angeles at Mann's Chinese Theater, which that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With Sandra Bullock sitting, 2 seats away from me, whatever. And I was way too nervous for that. So I asked for a screening of it beforehand in the Netflix building. And I've never been to a room like that, a screening room. I don't know if you guys have.
No,
No.
not me.
Nothing like a commercial. You never seen something? I've never seen something like that. So I went into this little room with Allison and a couple other people. And, there's no previews or anything. Lights go off, movie starts. And I was prepared to be conflicted. I was like, hey man, you might not like this. Let's get ready. And I don't want this to ruin the premiere or the rest of your time in LA. I don't want you to be like a sourpuss or something. If you don't like it, just be ready for that.
Yeah.
But 10 minutes in, I turned to Allison. I'm like, hey, this is good. And she's like, yeah, it's good. And then 30 minutes later, I'm like, dude, this is good. And she's like, shh.
I'm trying to watch it. Come on. You're messing it up for me.
At what point did you realize that not only was this made, but it was actually going to be a hit?
Oh, not till it was. I don't think. I don't know if Sandra Bullock or any of the other actors or Netflix even. I don't know if anyone knew. The night that the movie actually came out, we had a screening in just an office building in Troy. There's this little theater room, and Allison and I just kind of felt like, oh, that was the peak. The movie came out. I mean, what more can happen from here?
Yeah.
And so we drove up north to the UP. That's where Allison's from. We drove up there just thinking the movie's out. Sweet, dude.
Yeah.
And got stuck in a snowstorm. Got to her sister's house at 5 a.m. Went to bed. And then when I woke up, my phone was just
Lit.
yeah.
On fire,
the phone may as well have been red.
Yeah.
There was so many notifications. It was crazy. And I was like, oh, Allison, I think something's going on with this. And then it just kept getting more and more and more and more for weeks.
Wow. That's so crazy. Yeah. Did it feel like that kind of overnight success feeling? Literally because you went to bed and you woke up and saw that? I mean,
it kind of does feel like that because, to an outsider, and I've heard other people say this, oh, he's been working so hard for years or whatever. But, and I'm not trying to sound so noble when I say this, but I mean, yeah, I guess it's been working for years, but I mean, I'm madly in love with this stuff, man. I've been joyfully doing this for decades. Mm-hmm. So on some level, it does feel like overnight because everything, I was doing exactly what I normally do up to the point when this was a sensation, and now all of a sudden it's a sensation.
You know what I really want to do is I really want to get him and Karen Dion, who wrote The Marsh King's Daughter, in a room together.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I want to
that'd
read
be
that one.
fun.
Have you met? Yeah, I've listened
good?
to the audiobook.
We
Yes.
interviewed
It
her,
looks good, yeah.
And it's also being made into a movie.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear you two have a conversation and just eavesdrop on it.
Yeah, I want to meet her for sure. That book is a super hit, man, in
Yeah.
Michigan especially, or maybe everywhere. But
and she's in her 60s.
yeah, I know. It's cool. That's awesome.
It's really cool. And she was showing Seth it all translated in all these different languages all around the world.
And she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it when it's in, Hebrew.
yeah.
So
Wow.
Well,
So
Bird Box was big, and you went to Brazil. You
I
went
was
to
gonna
Turkey.
say, yeah.
You, it's been translated in at what 20, 30
Yeah,
different
like
languages?
it's in like 30 something countries.
Pretty
It's
amazing.
crazy, like bestseller in Brazil and Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And Alice and I went down to Brazil and Istanbul. Brazil,
so that's
Brazil was like
amazing.
a fantasy, man.
So that's why we were making the joke that it sold a Brazilian copies.
Hard drum.
And so, yeah, so I mean, and that stuff happened before the movie. So
Yeah, yeah,
Bird Box
yeah.
has been doing well for like 4 years.
Just as a book.
But
yeah.
now, like what's happening now is like out of this world. Like the New York Times bestseller list, like that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, you know, the book's been out for 4 years. It's doing wonderfully in all over. But like for all of a sudden to be on the bestseller list, it does feel like overnight.
Yeah.
So do you now have responsibilities with the book that are new because of, you know, it being on the bestseller list? How do you balance that with the band, and how does that
Yeah.
all come together?
Well, I think the band almost like accidentally picked like the perfect release date because
Right.
we had finished it about a year ago, and there wasn't one strategic talk about, well, the movie comes out December 21st. The album should come out 19 days later. You know?
Yeah, right.
No, it was like the movies come out in December, so Josh will be busy. Maybe put it out in January.
It's just kind of a scheduling thing. Like, let's enjoy the holidays.
Yeah,
and then,
well, we'll all be back together and we can play a show. I mean, really, that's what it's like. And then whatever, I don't know who chose it, probably Derek, but whatever it was, it worked out perfectly because there's like a brighter light on it now because of that movie.
Yeah, more
So,
exposure. Yeah, how did Chad? How did you and the bandmates feel when this all happened?
Oh, I mean, it could be. It's you know. We're sitting around thinking, should we get publicity? You know, should we buy a campaign? You know, of publicity? Should we? It's like this is
No, you don't
this
have
is
to.
like the best thing that could happen to any band. We're I feel like we're kind of feeding off of each other's success of the movie and the book and the album.
So maybe even
So-
gives you a little more energy to it, like more excitement.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny
that's-
when you're out and somebody introduces, like somebody introduced me as, this guy's in the band with the guy that, you know what I mean?
right.
You're
right.
like,
Meanwhile, we've been playing together for like 20
Right, right.
Well, I was
years.
gonna say you've been a band a long time since high school.
That's
Oh,
all right. I've been told before that I'm in the band with the world's greatest bass players.
I'll
so.
take it though.
Yeah,
I'll
you're
take
fine
that
with
too.
it.
Yeah,
Well, you're
yeah.
both smiling.
Is there a, sort of what you think the public perception of you is versus what your perception is of you that as this all comes out? I mean, do they disconnect, and do you have to sort of reconcile them, I
You
guess?
mean the band and the books?
Yeah, and just...
I think that there's a tendency to ask, like, well, which are you? Are you a musician who wrote a book, or are you a writer who's in a band, right?
Right.
But it honestly, really, truly was like a juggling act from the start. I remember Mark and I, when we were writing our first songs, we would talk about the novels we want to write. We would make like lists of them, and we would like lock ourselves. Mark and I are more akin to like the Brill Building songwriters, like the old school like songwriting teams.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That we just love writing and love writing songs and love, like the structure of like Substitute by The Who versus maybe the drum part. It was like, oh man, that change there is just so brilliant. We're very rarely saying to each other like that guitar lick. We're always
Right.
talking about like the changes and the structure of the song.
Kind of very Motown
Yep.
process.
No, exactly. Yeah, like that sort of thing. And then I feel like, and that's what I was saying before, is that I'm so used to coming from that Goffin and King, Neil Diamond, like sort of mindset that it wasn't very hard for me to hand the book over to the movie people in the same way you would hand the song over to your musicians.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I to answer your question, I don't know. I've read a few things where people are like, this guy only got a book deal because his band is a hit, song. So we're like, what the are you talking about? First of all, let's just say that we did have a huge hit. Let's just say that. So like the singer of Nickelback has a book deal now or something?
Right.
Like how does this work? I mean, that's how it works? You just get a book deal or something? You get a movie deal?
Yeah.
Right.
What do you get if you're good at podcasting? Like, what's next for
You
us?
get a sculpture deal.
Oh, good.
Oh, good. I'm good at that.
Public
You get a
art.
painting deal.
Nice. I've always wanted a painting deal.
You get advertisers that want to do your thing, and then you have to read
Yes.
copy for
Yes.
Me Undies.
Oh,
Yes.
fortunately, we don't have that problem.
Yeah, that's a terrible problem to have. Yeah.
So I got to ask about this, and I'm sure you've been asked about it a lot, but this movie spawned a challenge that people are apparently taking called the Bird Box Challenge, and
Yeah.
it seems to manifest in different ways. What's going through your head as you see that?
I mean, at first, it was all just part of like all this wild stuff happening, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! Like people are doing this and that." And then Allison showed me one where a dude's riding a horse, and the dude's blindfolded, but also the horse was blindfolded. And then Allison showed me one where a guy's wrestling an alligator, and he's blindfolded. He jumps in the water where there's an alligator, and then I saw a woman crash her car, and thank God she's okay. And then Netflix put out that warning, and I mean,
Yeah.
I know that my audience is not the same as Netflix necessarily, but I had to say something too. Like, hey, everyone, whoa! Like, I know from trying this, from writing the book, like, just like go take a shower with your eyes closed. Go make a sandwich with your eyes closed.
No knives, though.
No knives. Just like put your shoes on blindfolded. It'll change your whole freaking day, man. You don't need to drive a car around.
So you did that as part of research for the book. You went around blindfold. What was the hardest thing you had to do?
Well, there was a moment where I kind of just went up and down the block, really, and it was absolutely horrifying. It was absolutely horrifying. I didn't have a walking stick or something. I was just like writing this book, and I'm outside in this, Boston Edison, that area.
Sure.
So that's where I wrote it, in one of those.
Oh,
in like
you did?
the third floor of one of those homes.
Yeah.
And I'm like walking up and down the sidewalk a little bit. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is awful.
Yeah.
But then I started thinking like, this book could be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they got to do this the whole time,
Right.
Yeah.
Tension.
But I mean.
What's your favorite meme? The Bird Box memes.
My favorite one that I saw, it was less of a meme and more of like a post, but
Okay.
it was a picture of the girl blindfolded, like pointing, and then the guy wrote, "Girl was so useful at this part," because the girl goes that way, but implying that she wasn't very useful in any other scene.
Okay.
That was one of my favorite ones.
That's funny. I like the crazy ones that you've been posting where it's makeup.
Oh
Like
yeah,
the
me too.
Beautiful.
Yeah, me too. I love that stuff. My girl does like body paint and face paint and all that, and so that I don't know. She kind of opened my eyes to that world to begin with, and you see she follows a lot of that online.
Okay, sure.
And so then I do. I've seen her liked a lot online.
Yeah.
So to see like the Bird Box version of that flit through is really awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah,
Cool. Yeah. Well, gosh, guys, I feel like we could talk about. Oh, one more thing I want to ask. Being a band, how cool was it to get Trent Reznor on this project?
Man, when I was on set, one of the producers told me, he's like, "Hey, don't tell anyone yet, but it looks like we're gonna get Trent Reznor to do the, And I was like, "What? Are you what?"
Yeah.
Because I had seen him like on like a New Year's or something at like I don't even remember where, but like the New Year's like with the Jim Rose side circus show, whatever it was called. Like, I mean. Me and my brother wrote that dude's lyrics down, for Pretty Hate Machine. I really, really like that guy, and I track team used to listen to his songs before like a race, and it was really, and also I'm a huge fan of like horror soundtracks.
Yeah.
So to know that it was him, I was like, holy cow!
It's
well,
gonna be good.
Here's the thing: is that in the movie, I thought it was good, but the soundtrack that he put out, the movie's only like a sliver of everything he did. There's like so much more
to it.
Yeah,
people. Yeah, go get the soundtrack.
And I cannot wait to. I want to hear that thing on vinyl. That's what I can't wait for.
It's haunting. Yeah.
All right, guys, you ready to play a little game?
Sure.
All right, guys. Here's how this works. I know that's very Trent Reznor-esque, isn't it? It instills fear.
Oh man, what if he could write some stuff for our show?
I feel like our show would be a lot better.
Hook a sister up with that, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I can totally make that happen.
All right.
Here's how this works. We're going to ask you for a series of rapid-fire recommendations. Just tell us the first thing that comes in your mind. You guys don't have to agree. You guys can give different answers if you want. You guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Detroit area dive bar?
Yeah, I love Danny's in Ferndale. You know that joint? That Danny's Irish Bar?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love.
Of course,
I love places with like no windows.
Yes.
Like it's super like carpeted still.
Oh yeah, red carpet. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the Brew House in Kego Harbor.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Yes.
Away from it all up there.
Yeah.
How about biggest misconception about Detroit? Especially if you've traveled around and people know that you're from Detroit. What's the biggest misconception you hear?
Jeez, my God.
Well, I mean, when we traveled 10 years ago,
Yeah.
15 years ago, we would get a lot of, oh, you guys must be totally dangerous if you are from Detroit.
You had like street cred, like
Yeah, we had street
you're
cred
bad.
from being in Detroit.
I think another one, like a band from Detroit, I think people assume that you're playing like blues rock.
Oh,
Oh. Huh. All right. Do you guys have a favorite Michigan beer?
Yes, I like Short's Local Light
Nice.
because I like swilly, pilsners,
Lawnmower
things
beer.
like that. Yeah, like you can drink.
I've
like,
never heard that phrase.
But I've never heard that phrase before
Oh,
either, but I love that. That
Okay.
is so amazing. Shorts also has one that I like that they only do in the summertime. It's their version of cerveza, and I think it's called Cerveza de Julia.
Oh, okay.
So it's just like a thin beer with a hint of lime. It's delicious.
Oh, that sounds good.
I don't drink beer, but I like Leelanau Cellar wine.
Oh, okay, nice.
I think there should be a song called Lawnmower Beer.
Yeah.
Well, we have a songwriter. If you had a time machine, which moment in Detroit history would you like to go back to and experience?
Well, when I was in the Motown Museum, they talk about how, I think it was when the Temptations were like at lunch or something, and then they had like Martha Reeves sing a song that they were going to sing, that kind of thing. I would love to be in, because we've all been to that museum,
Oh, it's
and seen the,
amazing.
man, I would
you're in
love
that
to be
Studio A,
in that studio for like, from the beginning to end of a song. Like the songwriter brings it out, and then we see it all the way through to the end, and just like see exactly how that went.
That would be incredible. Yeah. How about you, Chan?
I mean, that sounds awesome too.
You'll
But,
join in. Yeah.
That's pretty good. That sounds pretty good. But maybe I'll just say I would like to see the Stooges.
That'd be
That's
a
a good one
choice.
too. Yeah.
What up and coming Detroit bands are out there that you think people should know about?
I love Hand Grenades. I love those dudes. They're great guys and they're great songs. Great singers. They have like 3 singers in the band. They do harmonies, and they just put out an album. And I think they're working on another one already. I want to do a video like for them. I've never really done that for like another band or really even for us. But I want to make a video for those guys. Hand Grenades are one of my favorites.
Okay.
What about you, Chad?
I guess off the top of my head, I like the Rogue Satellites. My other band, the Mythics, we played with them for our record release show years ago. And I guess the first thing that just popped in my head is the Beggars, because that dude Steve is he's a great lead.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's
dude.
just a great front guy.
Dude,
and there aren't a lot of guys like that.
Yeah. And last time we played with them, he was holy cow good.
He's on fire.
really?
Ohio Wild is brilliant duo, harmony duo.
Okay. I'm writing these down.
Nice.
How about favorite Faygo flavor? Just to get real deep, deep
Rock and
question.
Rye.
Rock and Rye.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are great.
Nice.
Do you have a favorite movie set in Detroit?
It Follows. That's for
that's
sure
a-
mine.
that's a good movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that is good.
that's so great,
That-
man.
that is a
and
good
that's
movie.
like Sterling Heights and Berkeley and Detroit. And
I didn't even realize that till I started watching it, and all of a sudden I was like, "Wait, I know these."
Dude,
places.
that
Yes.
movie is
It's
that movie was like a brought back like for horror was like a seminal moment. That movie that was a huge hit in 2014, and I feel like there's been like a flood of quote unquote elevated horror like since then.
Yep.
Yeah, that movie was great, man.
My son wants to be a filmmaker and he likes horror movies, and I think that really struck him.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Chad, do you guys do you guys ever watch horror movies as a band, or are there guys in the band that just can't get
I'm
scared?
not a horror guy at all. But I mean,
Wait, have you seen Bird Box?
yeah, but I read the book first. I like the book.
That's the right answer.
I
He likes
love the
the book.
book. I thought the book was fantastic. And I wish everybody had read the book. All those 65 million people read it before they watched it. I think they would get a kick out of seeing it come to life on the screen, and how it differs from, like I had different ideas about what these people look like. You know how that
Exactly.
goes.
Yeah, you create your own movie in your mind when you're reading. Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if you can, do it in reverse, but I hope
I think
everybody. I hope
so.
everybody does.
Yeah, I think so.
but you always have the. I think you're right though. You always picture
Start bringing
it's,
that in.
Yeah.
You know, the actors that play the
Then you're
characters.
going to read it.
Mark
yeah.
and I, the other songwriter in the band, the first time I ever drank a fifth of booze with someone, we drank a fifth of Southern Comfort and watched The Shining.
Oh, boy.
That was wild.
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was wild. Next day was insane.
Josh will kick me down, some books here and there.
Oh, you read The Ruins?
Yeah, I read The Ruins was a big one because
Okay.
I would read a lot in the car when we were on tour.
Nice. Yeah.
Because they stopped, at some point, they just stopped letting me drive.
Chad, you like to read?
All right, guys. Thanks for playing. You guys are
Yeah.
great at that.
Very good.
All right, let's talk about all the things that we've got coming up.
Yes.
You take the book. I'll take the band
Okay. So the book, and the movie.
and the movie.
Right. So
you
there's-
got too many things going on.
I know. I can barely keep it all straight.
Need
so,
a third host.
No.
Yes, February 16th, the Senate Theater, screening The Bird Box, and you're going to be there
Yeah.
answering questions.
Yep.
Yes,
Q&A
so
and signing and everything.
everything about that is awesome.
And my troupe, Wow Town, will be there. That's like our theatrical reading troupe. So it'll be wild. The lobby and everything's gonna be wild.
Okay.
And then February 9th, you guys are at the Lo-Fi in Ann Arbor. This is High Strung performing. March 9th, we've got the Hamtramck Music Fest. And March 15th, you're going to be at Otis Supply over there in Ferndale.
And Josh's new book, Inspection, is out in March, correct?
Yep, March 19th.
Okay.
So I got to ask this. Is there going to be a Bird Box sequel?
Man.
Yeah, what happens next?
I don't know. I don't really know yet. I don't know that kind of thing yet. I would love to. It's funny. I have like an idea for a sequel, but I hadn't really necessarily considered writing one. But then when I watched the movie, when the movie ended, I'm like, well, what happens to her?
know, yeah.
Like, I want to know what happens to her.
Yeah.
And so I did feel a little bit inspired
compelled.
to do it. Yeah. A little
And
compelled.
we can rest assured there will be High Strung sequels, more albums, and more music
Yes.
to
Yes,
come.
yes.
So-
Yeah.
Yes, I hope
yeah.
so.
Well, look, Chad and Josh, thank you so much for stopping by. This
Yeah,
is great
was
to
a
have
lot
you
of
guys
fun.
on the
Yeah,
show.
thank you.
And
Thanks a lot for having us.
Congratulations on all the success.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. That was
Wonderful.
awesome. You guys are great at this.
All right, until next time, Detroit's moving.
Keep up.
The D Brief.
Your guide to Detroit's arts and entertainment scene.